Welcome back to another video all about ADHD and being diagnosed as an adult. There will be hiking videos back again soon, but at the moment, whilst I'm between hikes, I'm enjoying bringing you some inside intel about what it's really like being diagnosed with ADHD. It's a little muddy. You can handle this. This ain't no thing. I've hiked the Appalachian Trail and other trails. In fact, this hat, my fave hat from the Shenandoahs, with Trail Family and I all got different coloured amazing Shenny's hats. So, where to begin? Hi boys! Today I'm going to talk about what it's actually like and what gets discussed in your 50 to 60 minute one-to-one with a medical professional, who then at the end tells you what they believe your diagnosis is. So one of the first things to note is that even though you might really be struggling, and that's why you sort out this diagnosis, or at least sort out the assessment thinking you might need a diagnosis, the hour that you have approximately with your psychiatrist is not a therapy session. You won't have a chance to dig into some of the things you're really struggling with and be offered solutions or tactics, techniques, or be allowed to really vent and talk in any depth or detail about any one particular element of what you might be struggling with. There is a time limit, and it's a very structured assessment. Even at times, if it doesn't feel like it, they have a whole list of things, tick boxes, I guess, in their head they're checking off to make sure they've asked you about. Saying that though, in my assessment, although it was definitely structured, I never felt rushed. It was a really great experience, actually. I felt very heard and very understood for the first time in a long time. So the person assessing you will do a full medical assessment of your mental health, taking into account any psychiatric history. They'll also ask you a range of questions about other mental health conditions, even if they're not explicit, to see and assess whether something that you're struggling with might be actually to do with a different health condition and not to do with ADHD. Not necessarily to say you don't have ADHD, but as it maybe to see if there's a co-occurring condition. ADHD might not be happening in isolation. Some people are diagnosed with ADHD and autism or other co-occurring conditions. And the mental health doctor, the psychiatrist you're speaking to, may well expand on the questions you answered in your pre-diagnostic document, and also will very likely dig into your past. That could be quite triggering, that could be quite upsetting, asking quite clear, directed questions about your past, especially stuff you might have hinted at on your forms. So be prepared for that to feel a little bit wobbly at times. Mine asked me questions about how I prepared food, which I didn't expect. Apparently it's a hallmark of people who have ADHD that they can't be bothered to shop or cook efficiently or in an organised way, and that actually all the steps of cooking larger, longer preparation meals are too overwhelming, and people don't bother if they have ADHD, so often they have quick fix meals. She also asked me about my driving and whether I'd ever had points for speeding. I have had points for speeding, usually only a few miles over in my lifetime. So I think that's very interesting. She hit the nail on the head with a lot of things. Clearly there were specific things she's meant to ask about ADHD across a wide range of topics, but loads of them were like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, is that ADHD? Oh, is that because of ADHD? So she might ask, or he might ask, a few kind of curveball questions, but they all add up into the big picture. Can you hear the bees? So it's structured, I guess they'll structure it in slightly different ways, but if I looked at my reporting form that she wrote about me afterwards, the first section, after all the message to your GP and recommended dosage of XYZ, or recommended medication, not dosage, that's done in titration. The first section was history of the presenting complaint. So what have I shown up with? Why have I asked to be assessed? What's the recent history of that? And then there's like the later history. There's different sections she wrote up about inattention, hyperactivity, and emotional dysregulation. So being like an emotional roller coaster, or having emotional reactions to things that seem over the top or out of proportion, or that are a little bit uncontrollable or hard to regulate. The next section on that report she sent me was the self-reporting scale. You remember in the last 2 videos where I told you the drop-down menu where you choose from rarely, never, often, etc. So it was a self-reporting chart scale of that. And then the next section was past psychiatric history. There's a chunk in there where she says, and I asked Gail about whether she had been XYZ. She reported that she hadn't, whatever. Whether you've been assessed previously for bipolar or dyscalculia or anything like that. And then underneath that was past medical history. So other things that you might have shown up to your doctor for. Things that you could, unbeknownst to you, have shown up to your doctor for, which may actually be ADHD related, but you didn't know it in your past. So mine talked about my chronic pain, other bits and bobs. That was another section. And then there are a few more sections left on the form, which were, hang on, I've got to get a little further around the field to find the dogs. When she asks about medical history, she asked me about whether I had any physical symptoms around my pain. So I talked about hypermobility, but she asked if I'd been diagnosed with EDS, but I never had. And then she asked how my periods were, and she asked about weight loss. She asked about any other conditions like asthma or diabetes, etc., just to double, triple check, or if I had any concerns about those. So they build a big picture, like a 360 full picture, rather than just narrowing in on the things that would seem like definite ADHD symptoms. So the last few sections that you'll get asked about, or that I got asked about, you won't get asked these maybe explicitly, but they're summed up in these categories in the document I received afterwards that went to my GP. There was a personal and developmental history section, so talking about your childhood, things that have happened in your life that might have been distressing, events, situations you might have gotten yourself into that are not necessarily medical, but that might show poor decision making, impulsivity, risk, danger. They'll ask about parents, siblings, relationships romantically, and they'll be looking for hallmarks and telltale signs throughout those things too. You are able to say you don't want to answer any of those questions. They won't force you. That you are more than welcome to say, that's upsetting, I'd rather not discuss that, or not that topic, please. There's no forceful feeling around these conversations. It felt like a very supportive place to talk, but not if I didn't want to. And when they write this to your GP, if you want to, you can ask them, please could you not include that in the letter to the GP? And if it isn't necessary for the diagnosis that they're sharing with the GP, then it's to their discretion, but they can leave elements out if you ask them not to share. And then actually what surprised me was that there was a box about how I presented in that conversation, and it said, it was a chunky little monkey, but what it said was something like, Gail is a well-presented, blonde, 43-year-old woman who seems in good spirits and, is articulate, bright, enthusiastic, energetic. I think they're trying to assess whether there would be any reason why I wouldn't be able to be diagnosed from that assessment, whether I'd been forced to sit it or that I wasn't compos mentis or making sense. But that little chunk says what you were wearing and how jolly you were or how sad you were or whatever it might be, and that they see no reason why that's not an accurate representation of how you feel, so that they can base their diagnosis on it. So at the end of the consultation she said, so I'm in absolutely no doubt that you have ADHD, and I'm really glad you're still here because some of the things that you've had to go through sound pretty difficult, and it's really great to be able to see you so jolly and happy, etc. I was like, you haven't seen me crying for the last I don't know how many weeks because I think my brain is melting. So she said, I think what I'd advise for you is Elvance, which is the medication I try you on first. There's a number of different medications and you go through titration to see which one will suit you. And then she said, we suggest Aftercare. There is therapy service available or someone you can talk to for a couple of sessions about this diagnosis. I just went, woohoo! I was so happy that there was a reason why my brain was sometimes wonky and my behaviour was sometimes wonky and it was getting worse. There was a reason for some of my quirks and eccentricities. I was so delighted. I was like, no, don't need that. I don't need that. But she said, we'll put you on the waiting list to speak to a nurse and then titration could begin if you'd like to start meds. I should have taken those talking sessions. I should definitely have taken those talking sessions. All right, boys. I recommend to you, if you go through this process and they offer you someone to talk to a couple times after diagnosis, take them. Because for about a week, 10 days, I was so excited and happy. And then I crashed and really wanted to talk to someone about what this diagnosis meant about me, my past, who I was, what my decisions in my whole life had been actually about. So I definitely think it's something you should consider. Don't say no straight away like I did just because I was so giddy with excitement that I had an answer. So that's what you can expect from that 50 to 60 minute assessment with the psychiatrist. Mine was online. Next vid will be probably about titration and the experience of medication and figuring out what medication is right, what medication is available here in the UK. It will differ from the US, I'm sure, or it will differ under the different names for it: Vyvanse or Elvant, Ritalin, Adderall. Hope you're having a good day. Don't forget, if you enjoy these, and even if you don't enjoy them but you're just nice, click like and subscribe on the channel. Maybe ring that bell so that you get notified the next time there's a video. I'll aim to keep these shorter going forward, but I'd like to chat to you. But I'll try. Okay, off to find the dogs. Have a lovely rest of the day wherever you are. Bye. I think I had a little bug on my chin. Big bug! Can you hear that? Can you hear there's a little rat bag dogs? I'm trying to be serious here about mental health. Adderall. I don't know how you say that. Bill Murray chewed through my pink hat today. That really made me mad. If I wasn't on meds, I would have been very dysregulated.